What's up, y'all? You're watching Union Minded. I am your host, Eric, and today we're going to talk about an amazing thing that happened in politics just the other day. I'm talking about Mamdani's win in New York City for the race of mayor against the Democratic juggernaut of the Cuomo family, Andrew Cuomo, Mr. Disgraced Governor. Somehow, this guy who came out of nowhere, somehow running on policies that affect working families, running on policies that are for working people, somehow this dude slayed a titan. And you got to understand something. The 1%, the Democratic establishment, the entire machine got behind Cuomo to try to make this not happen. But one thing I can say about New Yorkers, and I got to say this because I grew up in Miami, I'm a Dolphins fan, we're almost raised to not like New Yorkers much. But I got to say one thing about New Yorkers that you can never take away from them. They are not sheeple. These folks are going to follow their instincts to what they know is right, and you got to give them credit for that. Those savvy New Yorkers. You guys are awesome. Way to stand up to the establishment. But at any rate, I read a really good breakdown by a friend of mine, Qasim Rashid, who has his own podcast that you guys should definitely check out. I will link the website in the description box for you. But I wanted to read from my friend Qasim's description because he does an excellent job always breaking things down, and I want to bring that to you guys. So these are not my words, but I wanted to bring them to you guys because I think it's important. So I'm going to read from Qasim's Facebook post. Mamdani's win is a victory of the many over the money. And America needs more of it everywhere. Let's not sugarcoat it. This week, the Democratic machine threw everything they had. Billionaire endorsements, New York Times op-eds, a deluge of corporate cash, and the full weight of washed-up politicians like Andrew Cuomo, Bill Clinton, and Michael Bloomberg at Zohran Mamdani. And he still won big. The party now has a choice to make. And that choice will determine whether it has a chance of truly returning to its roots as a party for working people, or whether it completes the transformation into Republican light, which is what it is right now. How do we ensure they make the right decision? And how do we ensure leaders like Zohran Mamdani become the new face of the party going forward? Let's address this. What we saw last night was nothing short of historic. A 33-year-old immigrant Muslim socialist from Uganda named Zohran Mamdani uprooted one of the most powerful political dynasties in American history. This wasn't just a political upset. This was a generational rebuke. A reckoning with a Democratic Party leadership that has spent the last decade cozying up to hedge fund managers while scolding progressives for daring to demand housing, healthcare, and dignity. Mamdani didn't just win despite the machine. He won because he rejected it. He ran on taxing millionaires 2% more and raising corporate taxes to pay for a rent freeze, free childcare, and a fare free bus system. And working class New Yorkers, black, brown, white, Jewish, Muslim, and Christian, everyone turned out in force to say, yes, we want that future. Establishment Dems and corporate media united to fail together. And that's not a lie. They united to slander this man. Meanwhile, the same Democratic figures who claim Trump is unfit for office because he's a serial sexual abuser couldn't bring themselves to oppose Andrew Cuomo, a man accused of sexual abuse from at least 11 different women. As the detailed 168-page report by the New York Attorney General Letitia James documented. Cuomo, quote, reached under her blouse and fondled her breasts, grabbed her butt, engaged in intimate hugs, and asked at work whether she had ever cheated on her husband. Yeah, that's the type of person I want running my city. That's not opinion, that's sworn testimony. And it's one of many, many horrifying examples of serial abuse. And yet, Richie Torres, Kristen Gillibrand, Michael Bloomberg, and yes, Bill Clinton, Mr. Got a blowy in the White House, Mr. Bill Clinton, all stood by Cuomo. They endorsed him anyway. They knew the charges against him, and they sent him their time, money, and support anyway. Is it any wonder why the Democratic Party's approval rating remains at an abysmal 26%? I'm going to pause here for a second just to remind you guys. The Democratic establishment takes the same billionaire funds as the Republican establishment. The same money that floods the right floods the Democratic establishment. That's why we can't never get any laws and policies that work for the people, because both parties are corrupt. That's the facts and the truth. Both parties run a corrupt ship. And it's up to us, the voters, to clean it out, because we know the corruption. It's reported. We know they get super PAC money, and when they do, we should already vote no against them. We should already push them to the side. Oh, I'm sorry. You taking APAC money? Yeah, you got to go. We can't have you. Oh, you're taking big oil money, big pharma money? Sorry, we're not dealing with you. Because when they take that big money, that's who they serve. They don't serve you. They haven't served you in a very, very, very long time, other than to give you red meat so that you can gnash your teeth and hate at someone else. All right, let's jump back into it. It's because too many people see what the party refuses to admit, that you cannot be the party of Me Too, racial justice, and working class power while propping up men like Cuomo, backing police budgets over school budgets, and kneecapping every progressive candidate who dares to run without Wall Street permission slips. And likewise, we cannot overlook the sinister role corporate media played in the anti-Mamdani mania. The New York Times, for example, tried to erase Mamdani's entirely. They endorsed a former hedge fund manager, Whitney Tilson, who currently sits at a whopping 0.8%. Not 8%, 0.8%. The Times picked a real winner, didn't they? And not content with merely endorsing a multimillionaire who definitely knows what it's like for struggling New Yorkers in 2025, the New York Times then explicitly told voters to not rank Mamdani. And in response, New Yorkers instead gave the proverbial middle finger to the Times editorial board and overwhelmingly ranked Mamdani number one on their ballots. Hey, I'm voting here. That's probably what every New Yorker said, I imagine. But seriously, that resounding rebuke should terrify every consultant and editorial board still clinging to the belief that they have the trust of the people. That rebuke is a reminder that trust in corporate media is dead. And it is dead because corporate media killed it themselves by repeatedly failing to fulfill their promise of holding the powerful accountable. Mamdani shows how authenticity is the best defense. Every attack on Mamdani failed for one main reason. Mamdani ignored the establishment Democratic strategy to move to the center, which keeps shifting to the right, by the way, and instead continued to unapologetically lean into his values of fighting for economic justice. New Yorkers responded by trusting his authenticity and sincerity. Even as the attacks increased, even as each attack was progressively worse than the last one, they said he was untrustworthy because he changes his accents. Yeah, this is an actual attack on Zoran Mamdani. Tell me that you're white and monolingual without telling me that you're white and monolingual. Apparently, those making this attack have never heard of code switching and why black and brown people regularly engage in such as a humanizing and survival method. They said he's a socialist and he wants to take your money. New Yorkers voted overwhelmingly for a proposed 2% tax increase on people making $1 million or more, and a corporate tax rate that matches New Jersey's rate in exchange for free bus transport, free childcare, and rent freezes. He's anti-Semitic because he won't visit Israel first as New York City mayor. I'm sorry, but what the hell does a New York City mayor have to do in Israel? New Yorkers saw the absurdity of this purity test for a mayor of New York City, which definitely is in the United States the last time I checked, and valued his actual answer to serve as a mayor for all New Yorkers in the 5 boroughs, period. They saw his alliance with New York City Comptroller Brad Lander, who is proudly Jewish and proudly endorsed Mamdani. They saw Mamdani's efforts to humanize Jews, Muslims, and people of all backgrounds as who he is sincerely. They saw his plan to increase funding by 800% to combat anti-Semitic and Islamophobic hate crimes as a meaningful path to peace and reconciliation. He's a scary Muslim, and by the way, did you know he's brown too? Cuomo's super PAC literally darkened Mamdani's eyes and grew his beard in their attack ads on him, warning that if you let the scary brown Muslim get elected, then apparently you'll all have to grow beards too. I wasn't sure what the conclusion of that attack ad was. I just know it was dumb, racist, and fortunately it didn't work. Some ads were even more grotesque, like from the New York Times endorsed candidate Whitney Tilson, alleging that Mamdani would engage somehow in violence against Jewish people. As a result, Mamdani and his family received death threats, something as predictable as it was inexcusable. Meanwhile, no apologies or retractions from the New York Times on endorsing someone who engaged in such a grotesque and dangerous bigotry against a fellow candidate. It's no wonder New Yorkers reject the Times. The establishment threw everything they had at Mamdani: lies, fears, hate, money, influence, and threats. And it all failed because Mamdani had the courage, compassion, coordination, and conviction to lean into who he is unapologetically. A working class immigrant who just wants to ensure that his fellow New Yorkers can put food on the table and have a roof over their heads. And New Yorkers responded to his authenticity, proving decisively that the many can win over the money. This is what makes America truly great. But the question of the hour is this: will establishment Democrats understand this and get behind Mamdani, or will they continue to run in opposition to him? That's the big question. Are the establishment Democrats going to realize that the people need representation, or are they going to keep running to the money? Is that where they're going to keep going, running to the money? Because if you keep running to the money, I'm sorry, revolution is the only thing that's left. We already have money dominating our everyday lives. If there is no choice in politics for us, then revolution is the only other way. So smarten up, Democrats, you dummies. Quit running to the monies. The people's is where you need to run to. My name's Eric. Remember that the fight's not left and right. It's up and down. It's going to take solidarity to win always. Each one teach one. Get out there and reach one. And remember, there could be no union without you and I front and center. So let's go. Peace.